Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Martha Bueno. I'm coming to you live from Miami with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Zach Foster. Good evening, Zach. How are we?
Hello, Martha. You know, this evening, I seem to be having one of those interesting times where the closer that we get to showtime on Latin Libertarians, the more people I know need to talk to me at this exact instant.
It's kind of what happened, Zach. This is the deal, you know? Get pro, man.
It's like a
This
law
week
of
has been really
magnetism.
interesting in Latin America. Of course,
Yeah,
it
the whole place
always
is on
is.
fire.
Yeah, it's been crazy in Latin America this week, but not just Latin America, kind of all over the world, maybe.
Yeah, kind of all over the world.
We do
I
have
mean,
a
really
great
since
clip
the
from
pandemic began, but
Australia tonight.
all right. Well, you know what? Let's actually, I think I would like to lead out with that clip instead of leading into that clip, because we are going to tell you guys what Australia's insane lockdown measures have to do with us.
Exactly. Because it is insane. I mean, come on. Like, what is going on
Very
with
insane.
Australia? You have an absolutely. So let's get started with Latin America, because that's what everybody comes here to hear about. What's going on in Latin America? Which of the countries that are on fire this week do you want to start with?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What is the most interesting one? We'll get
They're
back.
all interesting.
Jeez, I know. It's a giant dumpster fire, and I'm just trying to localize which one of the several flames is dancing the prettiest. All right, we'll do a quick overview of Venezuela. There's something that I want to show you guys. We'll get into other Venezuela news later, but there is something pretty delicious that we have to show you guys right now. Go to either one of those two Twitter links that I had sent you. So the context is Nicolas Maduro's party, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, just had their primary elections. This is to decide which one of that party's candidates is going to appear on the elections later on this year for the different governor races. Lo and behold, the party is corrupt, and members of Maduro's party thought that they were going to have like democracy for themselves. And lo and behold, no, the party had already decided at the highest levels who the different candidates were going to be. So all the ground level activists from Maduro's party are now totally shocked that this is happening to them. And they're literally coming to fistfights and shoving matches and blows all over the country. That's just one from one particular district. Let's go to the other one. We're showing you guys two specific clips, but there were fistfights that broke out in every single Venezuelan state yesterday. This was from coast to coast in different polling places inside of the ruling party. The snake is already eating itself. So what do we see in this clip?
This is true.
Notice
and
all the red
hats. I have
hats.
to say, I am here for all of it.
Yeah.
I am here for all of it. Yep.
Do we need to rewind a little bit?
Did we miss it? It was at the very beginning. Look at it.
Yeah,
right
just look at them lunging for each other in the very beginning. And then somebody's got to intervene.
All right.
There's even better ones.
I love it.
There's others where they started stabbing and shooting each other, but we're not showing those ones because it's going to get us demonetized.
I have to say, though, it is, hilarious to watch. People fight. What did they think was going to happen? What really were they expecting? They obviously don't want freedom for other people. Where
exactly.
do they think that they're going to get this freedom for themselves?
These people are the local hoodlums and the gangbangers and the paramilitary members and the Socialist Party militia members who have been doing revolutionary violence against the rest of Venezuela for 8 years now, more than 8 years. And they thought that because they did that, they were going to get to have democracy inside of their party. And they are totally shocked when they found out, hey, oh my gosh, we live in an authoritarian dictatorship where we no longer have our privileges. And they are absolutely shocked about that. Absolutely just dumbfounded. So that is our little deliciousness from Venezuela. There is none of this peacefully resolving revolutionary contradictions by discussion inside the party, like the American Marxists like to say. No, it comes down to hoodlums and gangbangers from different factions of the party pushing each other and having fistfights and killing each other over who's going to appear on the ballot. Because who appears on the ballot for the one-party state is going to get elected, so that guy gets to charge rent. He gets to charge rent. He gets to make lots of money. So yeah, it's worth it to them to kill each other over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want your guy to be the one in power, because if your guy is the one in power, you're going to have a great time. If your guy doesn't get in power, if your guy doesn't get into power, it's going to be an ugly ride for you. So of course, there's a lot riding on this, and this is part of the problem. Just one of many problems that we have when we go to a system like socialism. But you know, what do we know? We just cover Latin America and all of the socialism.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of all of the socialism,
I love when people. How do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know? Well, we pay attention. We've seen it happen time and time again.
Yeah, it also helps when you speak the language. So, by the way, shout out all the libertarians who speak other languages. If y'all start telling us what's happening in your ethnic group's part of the world, that would be awesome. That really would be awesome, and that would help libertarian activists better tailor their foreign policy message to skeptic non-libertarians, and it would help libertarian candidates better tailor their foreign policy message when they're running for federal office. Hashtag
it's hard to
anyway.
It's hard to pay attention to what happens all around the world. I get that. It is really hard. Even for us, we're only paying attention to, you know, a part of the globe, and it's really hard to keep your eye on everything. So we get it. That's why we're here. We're here to let you know what's going on, you know, this side of the hemisphere on the lower half, and let you know what's going on in Latin America, always with the libertarian twist, because we're libertarians. We can't go, you know, we can't tell you with any other twist. This is who we are.
Yep.
So
which
tonight
is
we have
exactly why
on the show.
We want to bring this special guest on the show, somebody who knows the struggle like we do, how difficult it is to keep track of multiple countries in multiple languages. This gentleman either works for or has worked for Americans for Prosperity and the Libre Institute, both organizations we really appreciate. And he has a very special little detail about his ethnic background, which we would love to be able to share with you. So let's bring out my longtime friend, Marcos Lopez. Unmute yourself, Marcos.
Hey,
how you doing, amigo?
Hi, Marcos. Hello.
It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, it's a pleasure having you on.
Loving the flag in the background. Loving the flag in the background. That's all right. I approve.
Thank you. I keep it up there all the time, and I always get funny looks. This is the first time on an actual libertarian show where I don't get a funny look. In fact, I get the opposite look.
Yeah. You get the judgmental look because you're not using the exact correct color of what type of libertarian I am. So, yeah.
Basically.
All right. So, please, for starters, to break the ice, Marcos, what is your ethnic background?
So, I'm actually mostly Cuban, but I'm also Nicaraguense. So, I get it from both angles, right? I got the Sandinistas and the Castros just coming in, just messing up everything for both my families. I mean, I identify more with the Cuban side that I've always been closer to, but it's definitely been a disaster for what's happened for both countries, and really the start of Cuba, because Cuba is the enabler in the region. That you guys, I don't have to tell you guys this, but because of Cuba, we see the chaos all over South America, and they actively encourage it, and they send their troops to repress when things are going on, and they are really the head of the snake. If we're able to cut off the head of the snake, we can see a free Cuba. I think we'll see a much more peaceful South America and less chaos south of the border.
Now, real quick, when you say we should cut off the head of the snake, who exactly is we?
Well, we as in the people, you know, I mean, my dream is that Cuba is able to rise up, but this is why the Second Amendment is so important. This is why I always argue that, you know, is probably the most important amendment because it has one purpose, and that's to oppose tyranny. When we look at what's happening in Cuba, that's why we can't give up an inch here in the United States. We have to protect our right to bear arms because I've seen these videos, if you watch the videos, everything that's going on, I mean, people were standing up with shoes, con chancletas, with rocks, with sticks. And I think I saw somewhere, I've never seen so many cowards with guns and so many brave people without them. And I think those footage and what we're seeing in the oppression that's occurring is a testament to that.
I think
Absolutely.
some of the most probably moving and equally disturbing footage that I've seen is not even the really violent stuff where you see people actually being shot, but the footage of the 15 and 16-year-old boys who were drafted into the militia, and they were given a club and a riot shield and told not to break formation or else their whole family goes to jail. And you can see the kids standing there in clothes that are way too big for them with these huge freaking riot shields, and you can see their knees quaking. And you can also see the protesters who had showed up ready to throw down with the police. And then when they see that they're 15-year-old boys, you can see their hearts start to melt. And then they no longer want to use violence against these 15-year-old boys because the protesters realize that they're victims. But then again, that is also an example of how not only the regime used these boys as cannon fodder, but they also used these children as psychological warfare so that the uprising does not continue to rise up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this, Zach, because it's what are you going to do, right? I mean, the state controls everything. Your livelihood, your family's livelihood, where you're going to get a ration that month. All of it depends on the state. And if the state controls everything, the state is trying to control you, controls everything in your life in these societies. And the government comes in and says, I need you to help put these unrests down. I need your 16-year-old son, or else you're going to be ostracized from the community. You're going to lose your standing within the governmental structure. You're going to lose your rations. What are you going to feed your family with? You're become completely dependent on the government for everything, and they will use that and withhold that from you to get you to do their bidding.
Yep, absolutely. We also got news that the humanitarian aid that Mexico had sent to Cuba about a week ago, no more than a week ago, has already shown up in the state stores, which means Cuba is selling its humanitarian aid back to the people at dollar prices, not peso prices, dollar prices.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Martha, I mean, you're Cuban too, so you understand the plight of the family. Here in Americas, when we go back and we send money to our family members back there, and when we see what's going on, we're struggling, we're helping keep a great portion of that community, afloat just to be able to make the ends meet. And to see the humanitarian aid being used in that, I mean, you shouldn't surprise anyone. This is what the government there does, and this is how they control their population, is by controlling the food.
But the blockade, Marcos.
I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I think this whole situation has revealed who the Marxists here in America are. How do you react to the Cuban situation, right? Do you blame the blockade that still allows medicines and certain foods, and it's only really blocks trade with one country? Or do you realize that it is this entire system? And it is very revealing who's quiet on this issue, who's not quiet on this issue, and what reason they give for what is occurring on the island and why it's been a failed state for the last 62 years.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the one that caught me off guard the most was when the Homeland Security Secretary, who himself is a Cuban immigrant, not Cuban, ethnic Cuban, but born in America. He is an immigrant. He immigrated from like the high communism of the Castro regime in the late 60s, early 70s. How is he going to get in front of a bunch of TV cameras and tell the Cubans, do not get in rafts in the ocean, do not come here, the Coast Guard will catch you and turn you away? If I put myself in his shoes for 5 minutes, I understand the secretary of any particular department does not have the authority or the power to change existing public policy to a great degree. That said, could you at least have found anybody else, a deputy secretary, undersecretary, any one of those guys to get in front of the cameras and do that press conference for you? Joe Biden, how are you going to send a Cuban immigrant to tell Cubans not to do what he did? It blows my mind. it absolutely blows my mind. I can't do sentences right now.
It's a slap in the face. It really was. It was just a slap in the face. I mean, how do you send somebody who's a Cuban, who was born on the island and who's had all of these opportunities because he was given that opportunity to come here, to live here, to be educated here, and then he turns around and he tells people, but not you. Don't do what I did. That was for me. That was special because I'm a special person, but not you. You who is starving, which, by the way, that's a huge problem that's going on in Cuba today. The hospitals are completely out of oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
They've been out of medication for a long time. And now doctors just don't want to go to work because there's no medicine even for them. So if they get COVID, they have nothing for themselves either. So there are no doctors left in Cuba that are willing to work. 14 Medio, a publication that comes directly from Cuba, has said that they don't have protective gear. So doctors will spend all day with the same gloves, the same mask. They have no way to change it during the day between patients.
Ooh.
And so doctors have decided just not to show up. So the hospital system in Cuba has completely collapsed. It was already really bad. So, I mean, I didn't think it could get much worse. It's really bad.
I mean, Martha, where's Michael Moore, right? This is supposed to be the glorious healthcare system, a shining example for the whole world, and it's supposed to put our healthcare system to shame. And reality, anything but that.
To answer that question, Michael Moore is in a $25 million house near the Canadian border. That's where Michael Moore is.
This video is of a Cuban hospital, and you see garbage bags over the bedding because they don't have any bed sheets. I mean, obviously, it's just complete chaos.
Oh, that's actually one of the cleaner ones.
Oh yeah, this one isn't. I'm not going to share the ones of people just dying. I mean, there are some terrible videos. This site here is on Instagram, Cubanos por el Mundo, and they have a ton of videos that you can watch that are very graphic. You know, we're not gonna share those here, obviously, but it is absolutely horrific what is happening in Cuba, and there's just no salvation. So we need to stop talking about the blockade and start talking about what can we do. Oxygen for patients in Cuba, that's a priority, at least in my mind. I mean, can we get a shipment of oxygen from the United States? How do we help?
I mean, I definitely think there's three things that we should be doing. The first thing is, I think the U.S. can assist. And I know, you know, this is definitely sometimes frowned upon by libertarians, but I think restoring some sort of internet to the island, like we did in Puerto Rico with those balloons, could help them organize and stay in touch to keep the pressure on the regime, as well as allowing Cuban Americans here to go help if they so wish, right? And that's a proclamation that they renew every year. I believe it's Proclamation 68, 67. And it's definitely something that we could definitely strike down to allow Cubans to help themselves. I know so many Cubans in Miami that would love to be able to go help themselves. There's footage, and actually on the same Los Cubanos por el Mundo website, that shows, you know, a boat going in that direction, being stopped by the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard telling them you can't proceed any further, and if you do, we probably can't let you back in. And this is something there's a need out there, and there is a lot of people in the Cuban American community who also want some form of intervention, what that might be. And I think that's also unique to remember that, you know, Cuba is unique, and when you bring that whole situation with immigration and coming over here, it's the only way we can come to this country is by the ocean. It is an island. It is essentially a prison in the middle of the Caribbean, which you're not allowed to leave.
You are not allowed to leave. That's exactly the problem. I continuously say this, and I know that I get weird looks from people, but in my mind, Cuba is a plantation. The owners of this plantation is the Cuban government, and everybody must work in this plantation or starve. It is a form of slavery. People get paid $40 for the entire month. Prices go up, as does everything. They no longer can afford anything. There's really nothing to buy. I mean, this is a form of modern day slavery. And we sit here in the United States and we just go, oh, well, they should figure it out. You know, yeah, I agree. We shouldn't be intervening, but we also shouldn't be stopping people from going over there and helping. At least that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between sending the 1st Marine Division to go do a regime change and allowing 1.3 million members of an ethnicity to effect some kind of humanitarian change in their ethnic motherland, in which many of them were born.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense for Proclamation 68, 67 to be removed, but we're talking about government here, folks. They're not exactly the most, what makes sense kind of deal. So I have very little hope. This week in the news, it was said that Biden, again, is considering Wi-Fi, and it seems to be possibly more of a reality, but I really wish they'd stop promising us Wi-Fi and just give us the damn Wi-Fi. It didn't take this long after Hurricane Maria for Puerto Rico. Shouldn't have taken this long. We are at a month exactly tonight from when the protests started in Cuba. And in 1 month, we haven't done a thing. Actually, nobody in the community has done a thing. I mean, the worldwide community, not just the United States.
Yeah, a lot of people have shouted about it. A lot of people have tweeted, and that's good. Information, specific lines of information is very helpful. But the narrative still remains that, a lot of Cubans are protesting for a vaccine as opposed to for the regime to fall. And then also, again, the Coast Guard is blocking ethnic Cubans from helping out their personal family members. That's absolutely ridiculous. But this is all just helping that regime. So it seems like no matter which way, we're totally screwed. And the only thing that people are asking for is for government to get out of the way so that human action can happen and the mechanics of history can start working. Communism, at least the way that it's applied in the Soviet model, has already proved itself to be unsustainable time and time again. So how long is the United States government going to help that regime sustain itself?
And I mean, to go back to what we talked about earlier, I mean, if anything, the humanitarian aid has given them another carrot in their toolbox to try to pacify the resistance, and say, we have these items that we can give you, but you need to stop. You need to go back home and go back and don't cause any mayhem. But I want more mayhem. I want to see a free Cuba in my lifetime. I would love to see a free Cuba before my grandfather dies. I mean, my grandfather is the reason that I'm here, and my father as well. And if it wasn't for them, I mean, they've talked their whole life as if we're never going to see a free Cuba. And this has been the first time since the fall of the Soviet Union that we have seen anything close to an uprising against the government. And I think hopefully this is the beginning of something beautiful.
God, I hope so. And you just said that, and all the hairs on my body just stood up, because that was my grandfather's dream. And it's very unfortunate that he never got around to see a free Cuba. He, came to this country and kept saying, I'm going to go back to Cuba. And unfortunately, he passed here and was not able to. So I hope your grandfather has that outcome that my grandfather didn't get to have, because it's so sad. 62 years of this. And all it's done is separate us from our family, from our friends, from our community. And while I am eternally grateful to this country for having me, having you, I mean, it has given us everything. But you can't take away that we are in a country that, I feel like it's mine, but it's not our country. Our country is a plantation 90 miles away that enslaves people. And I think that it's our duty here as Cuban Americans to help, to make sure that they get that freedom that we enjoy here. And also, second part of that mission is reminding Americans what made America great, why it is that we have these freedoms that we can offer refugees from around the world, because it's not just Cubans. Right now, it's Nicaraguans and Venezuelans and Peruvians and Syrians and Haitians. There's so many people.
And Chinese. Do not forget about Chinese.
And Chinese. And
that is very quickly going to become the biggest refugee group. Very quickly. Watch it.
I don't think we can house that many Chinese. They have a lot of population. I mean, we complain about countries like Cuba with 11 million people total. I don't think we can handle all of China.
The UK has already made it law that 3 million Hong Kongers have a right to resettle in UK territory, wherever in the world it may be. And that is a country that is so much smaller, so much less landmass, smaller national treasuries, smaller and less everything. If they could figure it out, we can figure it out.
Absolutely. And yeah, you know how I feel about open borders and all that good stuff. So
Freedom
Especially
is
the Hong Kongers. That is specifically a group of people that speaks English.
and who believe in freedom. These people up
Yes.
protesting was beautiful to watch. Absolutely beautiful. And they were
Yeah, these
holding
people
those
were
American
British until
flags.
25 years ago. Holy cannoli.
Yeah, they really know what freedom is, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, I've
but
also thought it would be a great policy is if we could do kind of a swap, right? If you would love to live in those systems, I will trade you one of those for one of our freedom, liberty loving people. I mean, the thing about this philosophy, this idea, these values that we hold is that they transcend lines on the floor, right? This is about what do you view the role of humanity and the future of the species, right? Do you believe that freedom is a crucial element to achieve beautiful things, wonderful things? And I truly believe that. And that's an idea that I think there are people, regardless of where you live, oppressed regimes all over the world who are yearning for it. And if that's the idea that you believe America was founded on and tries to strive to, hasn't always done it perfectly, hasn't always done it perfect, but that idea and that those values are worth fighting for and they're worth sharing.
Yeah, this country by no means has been perfect, but I mean, I think we tend to try and drag it through the mud and say things that, yeah, it's not been perfect, but it's made up by humans and we're just not perfect. And I mean, there's a lot that we can do much better. But considering how Latin America is, for example, we're killing it here. It's great.
so real quick, I just want to make a quick differentiation out of respect for some of the folks inside the Libertarian Party. When we say Marxist, when we say communist, when we say socialist, 99% of the time it applies to this 20th century Soviet, if not Stalinist application of the word. There are a lot of folks inside of this party who are socialist, but they are not government socialists. They're not Marxist socialists. They're more anarcho-socialists. The ones that do identify on the left, folks like Mike Shipley, a good friend of mine, they are more Rosa Luxemburg, a lot less Karl Marx. For everybody who wants to do it without government, who wants to do it peacefully, who is actually able to have an honest conversation with me about where different regimes in history have gone totally wrong and committed crimes against humanity, infinite respect for those people. And I do believe that we can coexist and build a society with those people. Then again, there is another group of people who claim to be the Rosa Luxemburg type of socialist. A lot of those folks are in the DSA. Some of them are my friends. Some of them are my enemies. They say Sweden and Norway out of one side of their mouth. And then the minute other countries start letting the United States travel to their country, where do they go? Venezuela. The DSA sends a delegation to Venezuela. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where I draw the line.
Totally
now,
agree.
real quick, Marcos, enough depressing our audience with Latin America for 5 minutes. Let's talk about your personal history as an activist, because in addition to being Latino, you're an American.
Correct. So I came in through the 2011, 2010 Ron Paul effort when that was kicking off. So I came in as a Ron Paul libertarian, and I encourage people, if you put out content, you put out videos talking about liberty, it works. That's how I ended up even believing in any of these things and finding these views and these ideas, right? Growing up, one thing was certain, right? I'm anti-communist. That we know that much, right? We don't believe in this Marxist Leninist model. But, I was always feeling kind of, I hate using this because it promotes the dichotomy, right? But I was always feeling kind of liberal around conservative and kind of conservative around liberals type of deals. And, I was in high school, it was probably like 15, 16. I'm going through YouTube, going down this rabbit hole. That's how I found like Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand, some videos of Hayek. And eventually I kind of ran across a old Ron Paul montage from like 2008 of him arguing with Giuliani about the terrorism and the wars. And from there, it was just down this rabbit hole. And, there's some libertarians that are opposed to like political activism of any sort because they think voting or elections are coercion and that's violence in itself. And then there's others that do engage in those actions. For me, I think it was kind of bridging the philosophical to action that really kind of motivated me quite a bit. And I mean, that kind of led me down this rabbit hole. Started kind of working on elections and campaigns a bit. But even then, it was kind of weird for me because when you do kind of that electioneering, you leave your personal views at the door, right? You're kind of trying to just win that campaign, that election. And that didn't really kind of sit well with me, right? Because I do value my values quite a bit, and I do want to fight for what I believe in.
Well, let's do a little archaeology, a little paleontology. Drop the names of some folks you campaigned for over a decade ago.
Oh God.
It's all right. You do an embarrassing one, and I'll do an embarrassing one, just to make it fair.
I mean, I don't think I'm embarrassed for anyone. I mean, I had my reasons, right?
Okay, David Dreyer on my side. Congressman David Dreyer. For starters, when I was 16, 17 years old, I thought David Dreyer was the bomb. But yeah, like I literally had a Ron Paul sticker on my rear bumper, and like right next to the Ron Paul sticker was the David Dreyer sticker. And all my Ron Paul friends going, Zach, do you even know what you're talking about?
I think it was for me, my Ron Paul sticker, and then I still was kind of stuck in that two-party system type of mentality. And then I had a Romney sticker next to it. I think it's the most embarrassing that I get it because it's like, wow. I know.
You had a Romney sticker?
I know.
Oh, man, that is embarrassing.
I was like 18. It happens.
Hey, I voted for Bush around that time, so you know.
2008. I voted for John McCain. I was a PFC in the State Guard, and just being a young soldier, I said, you know what? We are a wartime country. We need a war veteran to help us win. John McCain must be the president. The end. I really believed it.
That was my first political rally that I kind of went to, and it's because someone dragged me out to it. I was still in middle school. I remember that. I'm kind of aging myself there.
I'm going to age myself and say I was old enough to vote for Bob Barr that year, and I did. I was one of the under million people that voted for Bob Barr.
I came around to Gary, though, the second time, for sure. I wasn't going to mess up that one.
No, I voted for Gary the first time in 2012. I actually started Republicans for Gary Johnson in 2012 because I saw what was happening with the Ron Paul people, the GOP 2012. It was really ugly, but while most of the folks in the movement kind of just liked Ron Paul the most, and they said, well, now we got to vote for Romney, I guess, because we got no other choice. I was like the diehard ISIS faction going like, I will never pair with the kuffar, Allahu Akbar. And like, no, totally. I was going to just stick by guns, hold out till the very end. I said, no, I'm going third party until I die. So I went to the LP, and I have never looked back. And in hindsight, I think I made the correct decision because, good Lord, just look at the GOP today. Look at conservatism today. Even libertarianism today has issues, but just look at the American right in general. None of the American left gets a pass. Cuomo, Biden, none of them get a pass. But, oh my God, just look at conservatives today compared to 10 years ago. John McCain would be rolling in his grave, even him.
No, we're quickly devolving into kind of a European style of politics, fascist versus communism in some sort, in some form. And it's a little bit concerning where we can kind of go, but I am still very hopeful that Americans will always lean on the side of liberty and freedom.
I had to, guys.
New York tough.
I had to. Sorry.
New York
You brought him up. It's your fault.
And I love New York.
It's 1 minute,
And
I promise.
I love you. And everything I have ever done has been motivated by that love. And I would never want to be unhelpful in any way. And I think that given the circumstances, the best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing. And therefore, that's what I'll do. Because I work for you. And doing the right thing is doing the right thing for
I think
you.
I just muted myself. What I hear, if I just close my eyes and listen, is Joe Biden if he had a strong New York accent.
Vote for my lieutenant governor.
You guys hear it?
Incompetent.
All right, I can no longer do this. I apologize. I just had to. You brought it up, and so I needed to just show you this video. I mean, can we just talk about it for 2 seconds? What did I just watch? What did I just watch?
I mean, he said he's going to let government get back to being government, but if some scandals mean government stops being government, I encourage more scandals in politics.
I agree. Oh my God. I mean, he killed, or his decision got 13,000 seniors killed. And here we're talking about, you know, I mean, he should never have continued as governor. I'm sorry. This should have happened a long time ago. I am so happy he's gone. It's time to elect somebody better. I'm going to say Larry Sharp is like on the top of my list for New York, but you know, I might be a little biased. Yeah.
If I could vote in New York, I would.
I mean,
actually, it would be highly interesting and also entertaining to see New York go through a really competitive libertarian primary. I remember I got to see a really competitive 2018 Texas primary, and that was awesome. A libertarian gubernatorial primary. That was cool, guys. It really was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully New York recovers from this. From Governor Cuomo resign. I don't even know. We need somebody better. Enough with Cuomo. So.
All right. So before we do a wrap up with our guest and then move on to some other Latin American news, I am dying to know, what is one of your all-time favorite experiences as an activist in the last 4 years?
You know, it was probably seeing a bunch of criminal justice bills pass, criminal justice reform bills in the state of Nevada. I think that was super cool. Criminal justice for me is a very important issue, and loosening up these laws and trying to end the drug war, things of this nature, super important to me because I do subscribe to that kind of Iranian concept that the only power government really has is to crack down on criminals. And it tries to make everything a crime so it can have power in that space. So anything in criminal justice reform for me has been really the highlight. So in particular, the two things I'm most proud of to have played a role in, whether minor or large, has been the Justice Reinvestment Act, which kind of tackled mandatory minimums in the state of Nevada. It dealt a lot with sentencing disparities in drugs, and started moving the needle to try to eliminate mandatory minimums completely and ending the drug war and reinvesting more instead of locking people up and helping treat the underlying conditions that have led to this sort of situation, as well as bail reform. So we aren't living in a situation where poor people are in jail just because they can't afford to pay bail. And both of those items have probably been the proudest moments of my activism so far. Hopefully it won't be the last. I would love to play a role in legalizing marijuana in my new state of Texas and hopefully doing something on the federal level on that. But, you know, criminal justice reform is really where my heart is. Other than that, you know, kind of devote more issues on immigration, which I think is also another major cause that we need to give our attention to just find a solution for.
Totally agree. Do you believe that the ending the drug war would help Latin America?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we are the number one consumer in the world per capita. I mean, we are such a source of the turmoil that goes on down there.
And the commie regimes are currently the number one biggest wholesaler. I'm not ready to call them the biggest manufacturer. To say that would not be correct, but the Cuban regime has now surpassed the United States government as a wholesaler of narcotics in other countries.
Wow, did not know that.
Yeah. We've been advocating around here about ending the drug war because it really would help in Latin America. The drug war funds what is going on in Latin America, but I really want
it'll help us. It'll help us that the Chinese Communist Party is absolutely sending fentanyl to Mexican cartels to make the drugs that we consume more toxic. And the Venezuelans did the same thing since Hugo Chavez. And the Cubans are literally giving people safe passage so that they can get their drugs to Cuba through the Caribbean to Florida without getting caught by the Coast Guard or the UK Navy. So yes, this actually will save American lives. Ending the drug war will save American lives, and it's also a U.S. national security interest, 100%.
Yep, and look at Portugal. I mean, why aren't we discussing what happened in Portugal? They're 20 plus, 30 plus years ago. I mean, they decriminalized it, and lo and behold, addictions are down. So, I mean, I think that we just don't discuss it enough. We don't discuss the war on drugs, and I think that there's only positive things that are going to come from ending it. But I wanted your opinion, since I talk about it quite a bit, Marcos. I wanted to hear what you had to say on it.
No, yeah. I mean, totally agree with all that, right? It's one of those things where, I mean, first and foremost, for me, it's your body, right? My body, my choice, what I kind of do with it. But more than that, the consequences of ending this drug war would be fantastic for everyone, as well as driving peace and really undercutting a lot of these terrible regimes in South America. So, I mean, I'm totally 100% total agreement and all that.
Now, how do we get it done is the question, right?
That is, if I knew the magic bullet to that, I would definitely let it go.
Definitely.
I would say in the meantime, find out which specific members of state legislatures are voting for anti-drug legislation and run third-party candidates against them to eat away at their margin. And then after they lose that seat, communicate with the state party and let them know, we will continue to help you lose more seats if you continue to support this and that bill. End of story. And that, as a matter of fact, is one of the ways that cannabis reform has been passed in multiple states. People got tired of the LP and the Green Party making them lose their seats, making them lose their rent.
Here they're saying, hasn't the Libertarian Party been saying this since the 70s? Yes, we have. We've also been saying that gay marriage is okay. We've also been saying all sorts of things. It's time people listen, is all I'm saying.
One of the serious things that would definitely help in that. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the Nevada state legislature, right, working and lobbying and trying to put for some of this criminal justice reform. Our biggest obstacle is always prosecutors. It's always the police unions and the police departments, because there is so much that they are going to lose if the drug war ends in terms of
all the Republican Kamalas,
the money. And all that. And it's not just Republicans. I mean, I've found out in the Nevada state legislature, for example, I always joke around, there's three parties. There's the Republicans, the Democrats, and then the police party. I mean, the justice committees in both chambers were run by prosecutors. And that's automatically an unfair advantage if you're coming in and when you serve two masters. You don't just serve your district, in theory, your people, right? But you also serve the police departments that fund and pay you. And they made so many reforms difficult to get passed.
Absolutely. So prison reform, bail reform, absolutely important. Marcos, any shout outs you want to give? Any URLs, anything you want to share?
I would say just follow me on Twitter. It's funny that you mentioned the drugs and gay marriage, because I actually retweeted recently a graph where it shows shaded in where gay couples can protect their marijuana farms with AR-15s.
That's awesome.
And it's mostly in North America, but I would love to see that completely spread to the world. But it's something that I find hilarious, and I think that sometimes gets overlooked and we get doomed and gloomed as libertarians. But they are strides being made. And there are victories that are coming about. And I think the gun issue is one of those where, I mean, constitutional carry is taking over, which is wonderful. But I mean, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. And you guys are fantastic. And thank you for doing this show and focusing on Latin America and focusing on the Hispanic community, because so often, sometimes I feel like they kind of get neglected, even though everyone says that they're such an important demographic that we need to outreach to. And I love to see this.
You're telling me.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on. Everybody go follow Marcos at Liberty Marcos. Thank you so much. for
Have
being
a great
on.
night, amigo. Okay, moving on to some special events happening. So, for starters, what did you think about our guest?
He's absolutely wonderful. And I do follow him on Twitter, so I had seen that graphic of where gay farmers can protect their marijuana fields with an AR. It
With
was
an
brilliant.
AR-15, I did not know
Yep.
such a map existed. That is pretty legit.
I mean,
I got to say, one of the most fun times I had with Marcos was probably the 2016 National Convention in Orlando. That was tons of fun. Vermin was there. A lot of people that I like were there. Obviously, Gary was there, but it was so cool. Nevada State Party at that particular time was a unit. Unfortunately, a lot of people got let down by a major leadership failure later on that year, and that sucks. But I do remember at that particular time, LP Nevada was a unit, and Marcos was there. And when you work hard with people, they are the best people to party hard with, and Florida was that. Now, what we got going on over here, this looks like a third world country where probably central planning is in healthcare.
It is. So this video is in Spanish, so I'm not going to play the audio that goes with it. But this is a patient in Cuba. His name is Pedro, and Pedro has cystic fibrosis. For those who are aware of what cystic fibrosis is, it is a very terrible disease that affects people tremendously, and they often need oxygen. And what Pedrito is saying in this video is that he does not have oxygen. Actually, he's a friend of mine, and I can tell you guys that immediately following this, he ran out of oxygen and spent over 24 hours in Cuba with no oxygen. He has no access to medications. We are trying to get him all the medications he needs. We buy them here in the United States and get them over to him. So this has been giving us here at Libertarios Hispanos a great idea of what we can do to help. I know I said earlier, what can we do to help? And while we maybe can't really help kick the regime to the curb, what we can do is help people like Pedrito. And we will be this week starting an initiative where we are asking people to donate to help us buy medicine for people like Pedro and so many others across the island that don't have access to anything. So stay tuned for that. We'll have more information next show so that everybody that wants to help, that feels powerless the way we do, can help. As we've talked about on the show, we can get things into Cuba. It has to go in very small packages and it can only be medicine. But things like aspirin, Tylenol, antibiotics are so desperately needed. Alcohol, alcohol wipes, just things that people need, syringes, etc. And we will be getting started on this endeavor. Pedrito here is basically talking about how the Cuban healthcare is completely terrible. I will have this video translated into Spanish very soon so that everybody can hear it. But, it's such a sad situation. And as I was saying earlier, the Cuban government is even they're saying that the hospitals have completely collapsed at this point. They have no medicine, they have no oxygen, they have no beds. People are dying of COVID, and now they don't have any doctors either. So people are going to be needing to treat themselves at home, and we are hoping to get started with this initiative and be able to provide people with the medicines that they so much need.
So that is actually a perfect segue, everything that you just mentioned. So folks, why are Martha and I making initiatives like this? Why are we trying to reach these people who are victims of healthcare failures in other countries? Quite simply because the things that are killing those people are a lot more immediate than most of the types of medical emergencies that will occur in this country. Even the indigent can go and get life-saving care. They might not be able to get some of the steps before that, and that sucks. And we will get into that in a completely different episodes. But that said, there will be an ambulance for most people. There was somebody before Pedrito who had approached me asking for help. Somebody who was outside of Venezuela, a young Venezuelan activist, somebody who was libertarian also. He was fighting leukemia, and it is a curable illness. It's gnarly. I dated a gal a few years ago who had leukemia, and it absolutely put her through the ringer. But she had a little one, so she pulled through because she didn't want her child to be raised by the grandparents. She said, I need to be here for my child. I've seen what it does to people. And I tried to help this individual, and unfortunately, by the time he had gotten to me, it was too late. I was literally in the middle of arranging a GoFundMe for him so that we could get him just the 6 months or so of chemo that he would have needed in Brazil. It probably would have costed around $700 tops to save his life. And we were too late. He died, and there's just no other way of looking at it. We failed. We tried what we could, but we failed.
And we want to not fail moving forward as much as humanly possible. There are so many sick people in these countries with free healthcare, and they can't get the access to the things that they need. So, we just wanted to let you guys know that we are starting this initiative. We're going to take it slowly. We're going to start with 10 people that we will tell you their stories, tell you what medicines they need, and exactly the whole process. 100% of what we do will be going to these people. We are not here to make any money off of this. We're not here to do anything other than help others. And that's what we want to do. We understand that we're a news program. We come here to tell you what's going on, but we can't just sit here and not do the work, and I'm not seeing anybody doing this work. Family members will send, if they can, from the United States, will send things to their family in Cuba and Venezuela, etc. But those people that don't have family outside of Cuba, outside of Venezuela, outside of, wherever they may be, those people need help. So again, stay tuned. We will definitely let everybody know where you can donate. And I wanted to say that People for Liberty is helping us with the collection of funds. They are a 501c4, and they will be, it's completely, transparent and accountable for. So again, please stay tuned. We will have this information on next week's show.
Yeah, we're not going to pull a Juan Guaido with the money.
No, absolutely not. We're libertarians.
We're not going to pull a Juan Guaido.
We don't steal from people. So transitioning now back to Venezuela, because Venezuela is the other country that is near and dear.
Venezuela/Mexico.
Venezuela/Mexico, but let's start off with Venezuela, because I have this video right here of Maduro. Oh my God, I almost called him Chavez.
Son of Chavez, kind of like Son of Frankenstein, same type of horror movie continuity.
Oh boy. Shall we hear what he has to say? It's translated.
Geez. Okay, I have no idea what fresh hell this could be.
Mexico. And Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, Dr. Hector Rodriguez, has informed all delegations of the opposition and of the government of Norway that we are ready to go to Mexico. We are ready to see on a realistic, objective agenda, truly Venezuelan, to bring all the issues that need to be addressed, to reach partial agreements for peace, the sovereignty of Venezuela, so that all critical sanctions of Venezuela are lifted.
Well, why is he wearing the hard hat? What's with the hard hat? Where was he giving that speech that he needed the props?
I don't know. So what is happening in this video? What are we talking about, Zach, here?
Okay.
What is the issue?
It took me a minute to figure out that that's somebody trying to do a voice-over translation of what Maduro was saying, because Maduro does not speak English. Anyway, they are announcing from Maduro's point of view that Venezuela will be having a dialogue. Well, it's a monologue, but they're calling it a dialogue in Mexico starting this Friday. Why are people calling it a dialogue? Because there's going to be representatives from the Maduro regime, and there are going to be representatives that some people call opposition that are going to be having what they call a dialogue. However, none of the opposition delegation is actually from the interim government, which is Juan Guaido's interim government. In case you didn't know, because the communists like making parallel governmental structures to keep themselves in power, Venezuela has two national assemblies right now. So one is the National Assembly that was actually elected in the last fair election that Venezuela had back in 2015. That's the Juan Guaido National Assembly. And then the other one is the fake National Assembly that the regime made during Maduro's second term, which he made as a usurper, because the National Assembly elections from last year and also the 2018 election, which allegedly was Maduro's re-election, both of those were fake elections. Venezuelan constitutional law, the real parliament didn't call those elections, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what we have is no opposition representation from the actual interim government, which is the opposition and the government that the US and 60 other countries recognized. There is somebody from Maduro's National Assembly who is representing Maduro, and there is somebody else from Maduro's National Assembly who is going to be representing Juan Guaido in this dialogue. And that's it. And from this monologue, which is a dialogue, it's not a dialogue, it is a monologue, because it's the regime talking to itself with its loyal opposition, not its traitor opposition. This is not a dialogue. What this is a surrender. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly what we're going to see coming out of this dialogue. The double fake opposition, oh my God, there's like so many layers. Okay. The Maduro opposition is going to ask the Maduro opposition is going to ask the Guaido opposition to ask the United States and the EU to take all the sanctions off of Venezuela. I can see the US taking sanctions off of the state companies, like the oil company. I don't see the US taking the sanctions off of Maduro, but that's what they're going to ask for. Also, you're going to see these representatives agree to go to elections with the regime. They're going to have governor elections later this year in November or December, and then they're going to have presidential elections in 2023, which means effectively the Venezuela crisis is going to continue, and it's going to continue to be a communist regime. And then Juan Guaido, he's gonna moan and bellyache about this for a couple of days, and then he's going to roll over and accept it, because we have made the case in multiple episodes on this show. Juan Guaido was fake opposition from the very beginning. He is a puppet. His puppet masters already decided in January of 2019 that they were going to make a big show and go to elections with the regime. So you're going to see a fake dialogue. It's a monologue. You're going to see them come out and call it peace. All these governments are going to recognize whatever the Venezuelan government is after those elections, and a bunch of people are going to start doing business with the communist regime again. And everything that happened in the last 8 years in that country, and the 403,000 people who have been murdered by the Bolivarian Revolution, which is more people than have died in the entire Afghanistan war, none of that ever happened. None of that ever happened.
Really quick before we're done here, though, I do have to share this bit of news because, I mean, what
is this Peru?
Say?
Oh, I forgot about Peru. Oh, yes.
How can you forget about Peru?
Well, at this point, it's on the road to becoming just another Cuban colony. So it's like, how could I forget about, North Dakota, or how could I forget about Montgomery County, Alabama? Well, I'm in California. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how could you forget about one corner of the Cuban empire?
The Prime Minister of Peru has been accused of money laundering. Mind you, he's not the only one. I mean, they have like a long history. No. In Peru, like all of them launder money. I mean, Fujimori was accused of this. Like, it's just
I believe he is actually getting a charge. Like there is an organ of the Peruvian government that's actually giving this guy charges, whereas other members of the cabinet, they have a history, but they don't have charges. For example, the current Minister of Justice in Castillo's cabinet is a former communist guerrilla. And the Ministry of Justice actually sent a letter to all the state and local level police agencies ordering them not to look up any cabinet members in the police databases. Do not look up the rap sheet of government officials in the databases. But this guy, the prime minister of his party, is actually getting charges. They say they've got evidence about money laundering during the election. I actually do believe that. We have hard evidence.
It says fact-checked right there. Look above his head.
Fact-checked?
It says fact-checked. I think we're pretty safe on this one.
Okay.
It seems pretty accurate.
Well, I have not fact-checked it myself, but if somebody else said it, we just now are seeing this news. Peru is so volatile. We're just now seeing this. Remember, just a couple of weeks ago, we had no idea who the president of Peru was going to be. Just a couple of days before that, you had pro-Castillo paramilitary guys marching in the streets with their machetes, talking about if Pedro Castillo is not the president, then they're going to make heads fly. Like, people were threatening Peruvian libertarians with machetes. We know because we got the photos and video. It's insane.
It is insane. So as we said, Latin America is on fire, and we're here to tell you all about it. This is what we do. And so please join us next week, where again, we'll have the information on the initiative we're launching to help people all around Latin America, especially. Oh, we didn't get to Australia either. So I guess we're going to lead out with what's going on in Australia and 5 things that you are probably going to be horrified when you hear about Australia. But please like and comment and share this video if you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next week. Thank you. And I probably should have prepared the Australian video before I told you all that we would. I forgot that I had to have this ready. So
you know
anyway.
what? Let's put the video URL in the comments, because the LPTV people are going to be really mad at us for going over. Let's put the video URL in the comments, and everybody, our challenge to you is to find out what 5 things about COVID restrictions are horrifying in Australia and what that has to do with us. And also, if we do it that way, we don't have to risk demonetizing ourselves for a copyright infringement.
He sent me the permission to do this. We have.
Oh, he gave you permission.
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
well, you got written permission. We can show it to the YouTube Nazis. All right, cool.
All right. So thanks again, everybody. And please watch. This is insane what's going on in Australia. So it's not just Latin America that's on fire. I think it's kind of the world. But we'll be back next week. Thanks again, everyone.
Will horrify Americans about Australia. Through this process of QR code check-ins, you will be locked out of society unless you comply.
So if you get vaccinated, there will be special rules that apply to you.
The second thing that will horrify Americans are our lockdowns. Our lockdowns are on steroids. Our lockdowns are so crazy, they were criticized by China. You know, the same China that welded people into their houses, the same China that filmed Milan on an active concentration camp, the same China that dropped a test tube in Wuhan, that China, they criticized our lockdowns for being too harsh. Sydney literally has the army deployed. This is Southwest Sydney. Citizens are barricaded into their homes for a total of 83 deaths. Not in this wave, since the start of the pandemic, not this year, from 2020, not just in Southwest Sydney, in the entire state. 83 deaths. That's why we're doing this. We have drone police, a Chinese social surveillance system, and most people think that if we all just got the jab, which isn't available, as we'll show you later, that this will all just blow over. Well, our Prime Minister said, even if we all get jabbed, it's not a substitute for lockdowns. Number 3, it's illegal to protest here. We do not have free speech. Now, a lot of Australians are going to push back on this one, but just keep watching and prove me wrong. It is illegal to protest under the emergency powers. Everyone who attended the latest Sydney protest will receive a fine in the mail, with their identity being verified by CCTV footage. You might think, CCTV, it's blurry, it's not very efficient. But here's the kicker. Most Australians are ready and willing to rat out their neighbour. They're being urged to call Crime Stoppers, to dob in their friends and neighbours, anyone who posted about it, and they are more than willing to comply with this. In fact, the police came to my house in the middle of the night, scaring and threatening me, and I said, is this about the Jewish boy I have hidden under my floorboards? And they said, no, "You're at the protest." I said, "No, I wasn't. You must be mistaken." And then thankfully they left. But this is what it's come to. Last year, a pregnant lady was arrested in her own home for daring to try and organize a protest on Facebook. America, listen, we don't have the right to free speech. Make sure that you protect it over there. We have the implied right of free speech. And the implication is talk shit, get hit. Our prime minister makes more than the president of the United States. Our entire population is about 26 million people. Your population in the United States is 320 million people. The president of the United States makes $400,000 US per year. Our little fatty makes $403,446 US per year. But let's face it, our prime minister does such a better job than your president. Just look at the jab rollout. In fact, our prime minister is so good at what he does, he even let his mentor fly to Mexico while he's under investigation for covering up his father being a kiddie fiddler. But that's another story, and I have to throw in the word allegedly somewhere in that sentence, but you get the picture. The fifth thing that will horrify you is that we're not allowed to leave. We're stuck. 30% of Australians were actually born overseas, but they can't leave either. Even if you've had the jab, even if you have antibodies, even if you promise you're never going to come back, you're not allowed to leave. We are a prison colony. We started that way, and I guess we're ending that way too. Unless, of course, you're in the government, like the Premier of Queensland, who just scurried off to the Tokyo Olympics, promising she's just going to go there for business reasons and stay in the hotel the whole time. But then again, she went to the opening ceremony because, of course, that's not a super spreader event, and she's somehow immune. I think if you work for the government, you are immune to the laws and regulations and basically everything. So there you have it. If anyone wants to sponsor my visa, you can't. But, at least we have good beaches that I'll never see again. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
So for everyone still watching, he is the Deactivist on YouTube. Please like and share his content as well. And thank you to the Deactivist for that wonderful video on Australia.
Australia is an Anglo country just like us, same style of law, culture. If that can happen over there, thanks in part to influence from the Chinese Communist Party, it can absolutely happen here.
It can. And that's the future we've been warning about. So please keep your guns, go out and buy a few more, and let's make sure that we keep our freedoms here in this country. But again, we've been saying goodnight all evening now. I feel like it's been going on for a while. So now it's for real. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with us.